Last year, we lost £500,000 in cash on a bad business venture. And so today, we are going to deep dive exactly how you can avoid making that same mistake. So, losing £500,000 in our business was a tough pill to swallow, and there was a few sleepless nights. But as I always say, if you don't win, you learn. And there were so many lessons that we could take from that loss in terms of the financial trouble that we suffered from it. And actually, we've been able to turn it into actually quite a positive win for our business moving forward. But just to break down actually what happened, do you want to just tell the people how badly we messed up?
So we started off great. We tasted the forbidden fruit. We had an amazing business deal. We made a lot of money in PPE, but unfortunately, because we didn't have the complete knowledge of the sector that we'd just made money in, we didn't cut and run and think, you know what, we've just made a fair bit of money. We found the golden goose in the PPE, but we carried on and it all went very wrong. And you probably want to even go into a little bit this.
Well, we'd made £1 million off of selling PPE face masks during COVID. The story started with our suppliers in China who we were working with sending us pieces of PPE and telling us to protect ourselves against this new coronavirus that was going around China. And we obviously took a laugh and sort of said, these Chinamen are crazy because coronavirus isn't going to affect us. So we just stuck them in a cupboard and forgot about them. Well, that was famous last words because shortly after, we realised that coronavirus was making its way around the world and soon enough landed on the UK's doorstep. And what did we have in stock?
A bit of PPE.
A load of PPE. And fortunately for us, our customers who are in the distribution business were quick to start asking us if we could get our hands on some of this medical PPE. And boy, could we. It was a great deal for us, and by the time we'd got a few mass distributed to our customers from hundreds off, 200s off, and the business lesson for that was we were perspicacious enough to see the environment that was around us that was changing. We could see that people were going to have a massive demand for this medical PPE, and supply was not ready for it. Because again, as we all know, supply and demand are the two metrics that define cost. And demand went through the roof. And if supply can't keep up with demand, then the cost will go up. And so we were one of the few people that actually had access to quality supply of medical PPE in the country. And so people came to us in droves. And it actually allowed us to make a real quick turnaround on our money where we made about £1 million just on this medical PPE. And like you said, if it was me, I would have stopped there.
If it was either of us, I think.
We didn't. Unfortunately, there's a third family member involved in the business at the time, which was our dad, Carl, who decided to ride the coattails of this increase of revenue through the medical PPE and decide to go into nitrile gloves and sanitizers and become the new Mr. Muscle in the sanitizing space. And it bit us in the arse quite badly.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we were the people to go to for the supply of all these products, it then expanded from masks to gloves, of which we weren't really getting much of a supply from China because it was taking too long. So when we employed someone on sales, who again was a great salesman, but didn't really have the supply side from us. So we'd gone out and tried to find, or more so he'd gone out to try and find suppliers out in the marketplace in the UK to see if we can find some more supply so then we can sell this rising demand. But because there was so much certification that's required and certain levels of standards that's required, obviously if things are going, but these stuff end up in the NHS and things like this, really. So if you don't have the knowledge in that sector, which we didn't, we were going out kind of blind, supplying then from other companies in the UK who we weren't as familiar with, and that's probably where you even want to carry on, and we got stung a bit.
Well, it ties into one of the most important business lessons that I can bestow on anyone, and it's something that we've learned through our 10 years of business and growing our company: speed. Speed wins every single time. Now, just because people say fast, they immediately correlate it to haphazard, low quality. That is not the case. Speed, and again, in our complacent society nowadays, where so many people take 3 days to do a job that should take one, we all see people like HS2, motorways, construction. You see 3 blokes standing round a shovel, eating lunch every 15 minutes, then having a fag break every 10 minutes. And nothing gets done because there's no urgency, and speed, unfortunately, has been completely wiped off our business forefront. Because when I was in China, any aspect of the business was super focused on speed. Now, to the point where it was quite funny, I asked for a spoon from a waiter. The guy that was serving me almost ran. He was like a meerkat. He almost scurried into the kitchen, through the doors, did like this power walk back, presented me with this spoon as if he was on like a Usain Bolt clock timer, and handed me this spoon within like 5 seconds, because he was so focused on speed, getting the job done quick, quick, quick. And again, the same with ordering a taxi, quick, everything fast, fast, fast. And we managed to become successful on the original PPE deal because we noticed what was happening around us. The supply and demand issue was going to become a problem for the NHS, for the country as a whole. And we acted quickly. We're like, we need to get these masks in. We were the first ones to place an order. We got a big shipment over from China to be able to supply the NHS and to be able to supply the people that needed the masks. And so because we were quick, speed, we were able to capitalize on that and generate the £1 million. If we weren't quick and we weren't decisive about what we wanted to do, we would have simply just let the deal go by and somebody else would have picked it up. Now, in contrast to that, Carl decided to be a bit too quick, because quick, you shouldn't sacrifice logic. And unfortunately, in business, you have to take risks. And what he did was he decided to go all in on shipments of gloves. That was a story, because we ended up with used gloves. We spent £80,000 on used gloves. We had a container full. We had some kid that we'd employed to go and see this container. He'd looked at, presented with a single box or a few boxes and opened them up and thought, well, this is great. And again, just like in the film War Dogs, where they've purchased Chinese ammunition or Russian ammunition, I think it was Chinese, the rest of the stillage was used gloves. Some of them had blood on them. They were like somebody in some third world country was hanging around the back of a hospital and just taking all the old used gloves from the hospital and just repackaging them and selling them to us like idiots for £8 a box. And this is what happens when you can be a bit too quick and too hasty. And there was our first 80 grand gone.
And it was such a horrendous time, because the minute you're in amongst it all, and we didn't actually know until we'd bought the gloves. We were told they were okay. So again, this is where you learn as business owners as well, and as managers, not just rely on one person. But he'd okayed the gloves. He'd found the buyer. It was literally a transaction that was done within a week. They received the gloves, and then after about another, I don't know, it could have been another 3 days, we had a phone call from this company saying, what the hell have you just sold? All of these gloves. Half of them weren't even there, I don't think. There were boxes of like 50 gloves instead of 100. And we were just going, what are you talking about? And I think they'd only had half the batch at that stage. So I think it might have even been worse. It might have been like a double that 80 grand, 160. So they had the 80. And so this guy, our previous employee, he went to go and speak to them, and they met back at the original warehouse. He then had a holiday to go and catch. I don't know if you remember, where he wanted to go to Ibiza. it wasn't even meant to be flying, but didn't tell us. So he's left the buyers with the key. They've then just ordered a lorry and stole the other half of the gloves, drove them up to Bristol, and then didn't have a clue. That was on like a Friday night. And then on Monday morning, when we were originally meant to go and see them ourselves, we went in the warehouse, opened the double doors, and just looked inside. And it was empty. There was about one box of gloves and like one. Is it like it was tumbleweed with one glove just floating across the set?
It's left a calling card.
Yeah, and you were like, call, suggest you call or something.
Yeah.
But and then we were thinking, bloody hell. So then we had to find a number, get in touch, drive to Bristol, try and get the gloves in. It was just an ordeal. It was absolutely horrendous.
In the end, though, like you said, we managed to get on top of it. We managed to work out a deal with them. To be honest, I think we kept half of the money somehow. So that was a small loss. Then we moved into sanitizing, which again was something that I just completely disagreed with. But, long story short, by the time all was said and done, we spent about £500,000 on a project that was never going to take off. And this is why you have to be super careful with when you are going into new business ventures to be really methodical and remember your logic and your basic business principles. Speed always wins, provided that you're not sacrificing on quality, because you don't need to. You can get things done quickly and maintain the same level of quality. An example of this, for example, if I've got a lawn mowing business and I'm armed with a pair of scissors and I've got you with your fancy new sit-on lawnmower like Forrest Gump, it's going to take me 100 times longer to mow a lawn than it is for you, and you'll do a better job. So that's about being efficient and understanding how you can improve the efficiency of your business. Speed, speed, speed. Absolute golden rule in business.
And the other one for me is you're staying within your circle of competence, is what I like to kind of refer to it as. And so if you're a butcher, don't just randomly change tack and then just try and become, like you would say, like a baker, or try and sell something in, something that's completely out of the realm. Stay within your circle of competence where you know what you're talking about, you know how to sell that product, and you're going to be a lot more successful staying within your lane.
100%. The next massive business rule, perspicacious. You need to be able to view your surroundings, understand your market. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? And ensure that you're measuring against everything. Because if you're in the printing business and you're in magazine editing, well, guess what? Nobody's reading magazines anymore, apart from the odd sort of pensioner who wants a bit of a gossip on EastEnders and a catch-up. No one's reading it because they're not interested. People are on social media nowadays. So with all of the will in the world, doing the best job with the best quality at the lowest price, selling a magazine, you're still not going to get anywhere because your market's shrinking. So again, a big rule, being perspicacious to your surroundings and your environment and the market that you're in to ensure that it's something that you're actively keeping an eye on and that you can take advantage of any opportunity that shows itself within your industry.
Yeah, 100%. And you've got to keep making sure that you're doing that extra 10% above your competition to try and stay above them and continue to grow, continue to put in new systems, continually employ where you can and in the right areas, and market the company. Because if you don't do those, you're going to just end up potentially staying stagnant or going into a slow, abyss.
100%. And for me, next business lesson, create demand. Creating demand, you need to know how to do that really well. Because again, if you want to try and take on market share within your industry, you need to know how to create demand for the product or service that you're selling. So something that we do to create demand in our business is when our customer is desperate for a piece of stock or an item or product that they need us to source, sometimes it's a bit cheeky, but we have to play this game where we might have them on a stock shelf somewhere in our warehouse. Now, just play this scenario out for a second in your own head. A customer calls up and he's desperate for 10 pieces of this glass. And you know you've got them on your shelf behind you. But if you were to say that to the customer, they're not going to think anything of it. They'll just say, great, send them in to us tomorrow. We need them desperately. If you were to sort of just change the rhetoric on that, and the methodology that you're approaching to it, and sort of say, look, I'll go and have a look for you. I'm not sure that we have any. So I'll come back to you shortly, but I don't think we've got any in stock. And yes, you're creating a bit of a tall tale here, but you go and make sure the stock's all good and that it's sellable and that you're definitely covered on that basis. You call your customer back and you tell them, we haven't got any stock, unfortunately. But what I can do is work night and day. I'm going to sleep at the office. I'm going to go and make them myself. I'll move mountains. I'll employ SEAL Team 6 to go and rappel down from whatever building that they're in and go and recover them for you. And make them feel like you have just moved heaven and earth to meet their needs and create that demand. Because when somebody's told that they can't have something, guess what? They want it even more. And when you're the person coming in to save the day, they will remember that for a long, long time compared to simply just saying, oh, we've got them on stock. Because it doesn't create any urgency. Again, another example of this, it's Christmas Eve. You're a parent, you've ballsed up, you forgot to buy your child the present that they desperately wanted. You're not going to get it on a next day delivery because Santa's the only person delivering that night. And you go into your local toy store and they've got one on the shelf, but they're charging you double what you could get it for online. Are you going to pay it? Depending on how much double is, more than likely you're going to sort of say, well, look, it's 50 quid, but I'll happily pay the 100 because otherwise I'm going to have a really upset toddler at home. And you pay for that additional service because you've created the urgency and you've created this sort of demand where you've told someone that they can't have something and then you're the one that's saving the day. And that is so useful as a business lesson for people to think about opportunities that land on their desks or in their email box, wherever it might be, every single day, where there's opportunity for them to create this urgency, create the demand with their customers and help solve the problems that you might have created, but you're still solving them.
The thing is, it's happened to us so many times, but, you know, in an actual real life scenario, and also, you know, a couple of times maybe in what you're describing, but not really. But every time that it's cropped up and we've done and have actually moved heaven and earth and we've driven to customers and driven to suppliers through the weekends, through this, that and the other, our customers have absolutely loved us for it, even if you were initially late or whatever it might be, because most people, again, just go, well, we don't work weekends, so we're not going to do it. But if you actually are the one that's doing it, again, I mean, it's more than 10%, that is. That's like putting 100% more effort in. And that's, again, a big lesson that I've learned, that the more effort you put in, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40%, wherever it might be, the other people, as long as you communicate it right, because if you're not making out you are doing it, then you just been a fool. You need to at least communicate that you are doing these things. But then the customer thinks, you know what, there was a problem, but I can't fault him. He's done everything he could possibly do to actually then solve the problem, and I'm more than happy. And then you end up in the forefront of their mind for when they're doing other projects where it might be, God, yeah, that company, they really saved me on that. You know, granted, like you say, they might have caused the problem in the first place sometimes. Or it might just be one of those things where it can be delays. But they've helped, and you're at the forefront of sending more inquiries, more business, because, again, there's an emotional connection to your company then.
Well, you're just seen as somebody that can save the day, so you become Superman with a cape and a pair of pants because they just think you're the best thing since sliced bread, regardless of what the problem is. If you're the one to be seen to consistently save the day, to consistently help them when the going gets tough, and you're the one where the tougher get going, they're going to come back to you, and they're going to be the ones that think we can rely on you. And when the projects, and all selling is taking someone from a point of doubt to a point of confidence that you can solve their problem or meet the need that they're trying to solve. Who is a customer more likely to place a £500,000 contract with or £500 million contract with? The supplier that they've used one time, and yes, everything may have gone well, or the supplier that they've used 1,000 times, and there might have been 100 problems, but every single problem was solved rapidly, really to a high standard, and prevented any damage or any issues to that business. They know that 1,000 times out of 1,000, they've been able to deliver on the promise that they were given. Whereas somebody that's got no track record and no history, and that's why, again, case studies and reviews are super important, testimonials, and not enough businesses are asking their customers for those reviews because they're super valuable, because other businesses will be able to look at that and look at the information and testimonials that you've been able to generate. And that's the proof, that's the confidence for them to say, no one's perfect. You've made a mistake, but every single time you've come through, you've gone above and beyond, and you've been able to help solve the problems for us. So again, 2 in 1 there. Definitely get the case studies and get the testimonials, and make sure, like you said, you're putting in that extra bit of effort.
And it follows on from some of the things that I've learned as well of how to deal with serious problems, whether it's in the business or in your personal life. You know, lots of things happen to everyone daily, and if you've never had to deal with those problems ever before, you're never going to know what to do. And the minute that one does hit you, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. You're just going to just be flapping around like a fish, and it's just not, you know, you'll figure it out. But the more you can go through those hard times and serious issues with customers at work or suppliers or whatever it might be. I mean, at one point, you know, with our work, there was the Ever Given ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, and that caused a massive headache to hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses because of the amount of goods that were stuck on the ship. Now, that causes a lot of problems. Now, what do? You know, you've got to just figure it out and try and find ways around it for, you know, these serious problems. So it's how I've learned to deal with those issues, not only from, you know, business side of things, but also in personal life.
Well, just don't bury your head in the sand. Too many people are running away from problems nowadays, and that seems to be a massive curse of everybody in their current society. People just bury their head in the sand and say, well, that's not my fault. Well, that's nothing to do with me. I can't do anything about it. And they're just shrugging their shoulders, and people genuinely need to start taking account for themselves, but also not burying their head in the sand when problems around them or to them are happening, because they get so much from being able to solve those problems. Which brings me on to my next point, another huge business lesson. Make sure you're studying the competition. Within your industry, even outside of your industry, look at the top of the ladder. Who is innovating? Who's making the difference? Who's moving the needle? You can take inspiration from those businesses, even if it's Apple or if it's Amazon. Have a look at those companies, study what they're doing well, study what you would do to improve, and implement it into your own business, because it is super, super valuable to study the competition, certainly within your industry and beyond, and then take inspiration to help your business grow and implement new strategies to improve your current business as well.
Yeah, and I know I've seen it firsthand, and this is a hilarious one, that when we'd gone into, I can't remember the car garage, I think it was Bentley, but we were in Bentley and Dad was getting a car, and we were sitting in the waiting area waiting to, you know, see the car and obviously sort out what we were doing. And then by one of the, I think it was the Bottega, there was about 5 people all in like suits or dressed smart looking around the car and with like clipboards making notes, and we were thinking, what are they doing? And they were, when we asked the lady at reception, they were like, oh yeah, no, they're from BMW or whatever other car company it was. And we were going, what, they're just making notes and like looking at the car? And they're like, yeah, no, they do it all the time. They copy the car and make notes and what went well and what doesn't go well, and they'll obviously buy a car as well, I'm sure. But yeah, just as open as that, walking in the showroom and checking over the car. So that just shows you they're learning from the competition.
The biggest businesses in the world are doing it. So if they are, why aren't you? Yeah. Simple as that. Some of the other things that the biggest businesses are doing is making sure that they are constantly upselling their customers. Now, this does 2 things. Number 1, increases the lifetime value of the customers that you're working with, and it increases the gross profit of your business as a whole, because the thing that you generally tend to upsell, similar to things like McDonald's, tend to be your highest profit items. Now, everywhere you go in McDonald's, certainly in America, this is taught throughout every chain. The question that they always ask at the end of your order is,
would you like to supersize?
Absolutely. Would you like to supersize? Or in England, is that a large? even the wording behind the way they ask the question, they presume it's going to be a large. Is that a large? They don't say, would you like to upgrade to a large, or would you like to be a large?
That might be, yeah, I think it'd offend a few people, that one.
Oh, funny. But would you like it to be a large? And the wording, is that a large, is so much more effective because it makes people that are on the fence kind of go, oh, go on then.
Yeah.
And across so many stores around the world, when they're asking things like that, is that a large? They are making millions upon millions upon millions of pounds on top of their margins because people are simply being asked, is that a large? 4 words are generating millions of pounds. And you see it in every business, whether you go to JD Sports is a big one in this country. Would you want some crepe spray? And 9 times out of 10, people go, oh, I don't want crepe spray. I just want my Jordans or whatever shoe you're buying. And that one person will go on then. One person per purchase, per 10 purchases. Think how many purchases JD create a day. That's millions and millions of pounds of revenue each year because somebody behind a till in your store who has been trained is asking, do you want some crepe spray? And it is as simple as that. And you need in your business to be looking at ways to upsell your customers in every single facet, whether it's increased quantities, whether it's an increased value add, whether it's an additional service, because you are leaving millions of pounds on the table by not upselling your products.
It's the clever way of asking the question as well, because they could just say, oh, do you want some crepe spray? You probably don't really want any, do you? And you know, the negative way of asking the same thing is going to yield nowhere near the sort of level that it would do if it's like, oh, would you like that? And they obviously always say it with a smile, especially at somewhere like McDonald's. But it's like those screens where those screens that they're put into place in McDonald's, and I'm seeing them everywhere now. I even saw one at Subway the other day at a service station. And people are ordering a lot more, and the upsell is a lot higher than it is just face-to-face, because people can order all their weird shit that they wouldn't normally ask over the phone, but they'll type it on a screen and then have it. So it's quite funny, but they make a lot more money from that now.
It takes the guilt away from having to speak to another human and say, I'm a fat slob, by saying, here's 20 burgers and 10 muck chickens and all of that sort of stuff. And then they get there and say, well, how many is that for one? And it's just you in the car. So, you know, it's crazy how these little things that businesses do can yield a massive return. And sometimes it's a game of fine margins, and taking an interest in those fine margins can have a massive return on your business. One of the next really big and important lessons that I would tell anybody who is starting or is currently working within a business is to look at the team and adopt a hire slow, fire fast mentality. Because we've talked about it in every video we do, anytime we mention team, the members of the team are the most important asset within a business, because without your team, you haven't got a business. And so it is so important to ensure that you're culturally aligned with the team are aligned with the vision and the mission, and that they're all working cohesively to ensure the business is being driven forward. And we have to do this. And we've just taken the tough decision in our business, it weren't that tough to be honest, to fire 4 people that weren't cutting the grade. They were simply working within a business, dragging their feet and acting as a ball and chain around the business. And so for us, we had to take, and it is a tough decision, you know, saying that, to get rid of people, but it isn't a tough decision as far as the business is concerned, because it's twofold. Number one, we need to give those people the opportunity to spread their wings elsewhere, where they'll find more success elsewhere in another business that better suits them. And it allows us to free up the additional capital that we're spending on those bad hires and bring in good hires, which will help align with the business and help drive the business forward.
The 3 simple metrics to measure employees are experience, value, and culture. And if you can rank your staff on that and see where they level out, you'll know exactly on who's cutting the grade against those metrics.
You should just set a score as well, just an average score that you're happy with. You know, if you were to do it out of 10, you'd be looking at something like 32, which is 8 out of 10 on at least 3 of them on average. And if anybody's below that 32, get rid of them, because there are people out there that are going to align to your business on a 10, 10, 10. And so they're out there. Don't let them miss out on the opportunity of coming to work within your business by harboring people that are dragging their feet. It's not worth it. Hire slow, fire fast. Really, really important lesson.
We've learned it the hard way sometimes, but it's built us up to be the people we are today, and we understand how that whole sphere works now. And it's an important lesson to learn, and sometimes it can be painful, but you end up being a bigger person at the end of it and a better business owner.
My final lesson, and it's possibly one of the most important ones, is measure everything as much as you can. Data does not lie, numbers don't lie. Too many people are running businesses nowadays, certainly younger entrepreneurs that are going into business for the first time, and they're forgetting the basics. They're simple metrics that they should be measuring, things like the number of leads, their conversion rate, their profit margins, their customers' LTV, their customer acquisition cost. They should be figuring out all of these numbers, and they should be putting them into their system and understanding what they are. And then any time they want to make a massive improvement to their business, they only have to take one of these levers, like, for example, take leads. If you were to have 300 leads within your business and you were to increase that by 10%, you have a profound difference by the time you get to the profit margin at the end. And it's something that we measure and try to improve every single time, whether it's conversion rates, whether it's the number of leads, whether it's the LTV of a customer. Whatever it might be, we actively spend every day within our business trying to think of methods to improve those numbers. But you should be tracking everything in your business. And if you don't understand the numbers within your business, you are going nowhere, because you will end up being swallowed alive by the foundations that aren't set in stone properly. And you will end up either scaling too much and the mushroom growth will kill your business because you won't know which holes to plug, and you'll just be left in no man's land.
The thing about measuring as well is it allows you to then produce KPIs for staff, so they know exactly, they know what you want from them, and they can tell you whether it's something they can achieve and agree with it. And if they can't, you have a discussion, but for the most part they're going to. But then you've got a structure in place where the business, the employer and the employee are on the same page, both are happier, and you've got guidelines to then improve themselves, which then feeds into you're happy in your job, you're happy moving forward, and then you can build on your future like that.
Absolutely. So learn from us. We lost £500,000 not following these lessons. So learn from our mistakes and ensure that you are following everything that we've said in these videos, not just this one. Go and check out the other content that we've got on our channel, because there are so many pieces of valuable information there that are going to help you and your business find success. However, if you want to reach out to us personally, we are always on hand to answer any questions that you've got, either relating to this video, relating to your unique business or your role within a business, and we can help you increase your value to that business or increase the value of the business itself. So please take advantage of the 10 years of knowledge that we've built up within our business, and don't allow yourself to make the mistake of losing £500,000 like us, because trust me, it still stings now. But obviously, thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, because it helps us massively to help others. So please hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.